Zen 6 versus Nova Lake. Who's faster? Who's better? Who's gonna win? Well, today we're gonna talk about all those different things and whether if Intel even stands a chance, because I came out with the video recently detailing these two architectures, and well, it seems most of you think that Intel has no chance. And today I just wanna crunch the numbers while taking a brisk walk. This is your reminder to go touch some grass, by the way. We're talking IPC, frequency, and all of single core gaming performance, and also multi-core for our workstation users. Let's get into it. So there have been some leaks developing with Zen 6, not as much Nova Lake. We'll talk about that later. We're gonna start with Zen 6. Moore's Law is dead has come out and said, yeah, we're gonna get 7 gigahertz boost clocks with Zen 6. And I'm just sitting here in disbelief a little bit. We are going to factor that into some of our performance metrics today, but that would be a 22% uptick in the Ryzen 9 boost clock. The Ryzen 9 goes to 5.7, and as I believe that's only on 1 or 2 cores. That's not like an all-core boost. I'm only interested in all-core boosting so I can get the most consistent performance across all my cores. But if you hit 7 gigahertz on 1 core for a split second, it might be possible. Zen 6, the very biggest thing, at least for me, with them upgrading this architecture, and probably it should be for you too if you're a gamer, is they're updating the IO die. Finally, we're getting a new IO die. We've had the same 6 nanometer IO die ever since Zen 4. And honestly, guys, this IO die is not too great. As you can tell with the RAM support for it, it only supports really up to like 6,000, maybe 6,400 mega transfers DDR5 if you're lucky, if you're running in a 1 to 2 Infinity Fabric clock, which you want to be doing if you want ultimate bandwidth. And this is the wild card for Zen 6 that is throwing off my performance estimates. I'm going to think we're actually going to see everything scale, the core counts, clock speeds, all that was Zen 6 probably will scale if this implementation of this bridge interconnect actually is a good one. Another thing to consider about Zen 6 is it's going from TSMC 4 nanometer to TSMC 2 nanometer, and that's 2 node jumps, while Intel has been on 3 nanometer and they're going to 2. Apparently Intel's not going to use 18A for Nova Lake, at least the leaks are saying that. Really disappointing there. I guess Panther Lake's going to be the only thing built on it in their new server CPUs. That's kind of disappointing, but whatever. So Nova Lake's just jumping 1 node while AMD is jumping 2 nodes. And AMD's kind of already ahead, especially when it comes to gaming. So a lot of things to consider there, but getting right into Zen 6 with IPC, I'm estimating a 10% on the low end, up to 20% IPC gain with Zen 6. Now, things that are going to be helping this IPC scale is the new IO die, updated memory controller, and just overall improvements to the bridge interconnects instead of using Infinity Fabric. If you recall, Zen 5 had a claimed IPC of 16%, while in gaming it was like 3%, 5% faster. Something didn't add up right, and because they didn't update that IO tile, we didn't actually see the full extent of that IPC gain. Now, when all that happened, it was around actually me starting my YouTube channel, and I came out and said, I'm like, guys, the reason this thing is not scaling is because this IO tiles bring it down. The Infinity Fabric is bringing this chip down, and overall it's bottlenecked. I got a lot of flack for it. A lot of people, the AMD fanboys came out and said, bro, what are you talking about? They wouldn't make a chip that's bottlenecked. Well, lo and behold, X3D came out, and I said this before X3D came out. I said, X3D is probably going to realize the full potential of these IPC gains. So I said, these chips are 5% faster, so X3D is probably going to be about 10% faster, because 10 plus 5 is 15%. They said IPC was 16%, so that's right around the 16% IPC. I said that, and lo and behold, it was right at 10% faster launch day. And yeah, and also, if you still don't believe me, their server or Threadripper CPUs came out with the Zen 5 architecture with a new IO tile, and guess what? They actually realized that full 15 to 16% IPC gains in many workloads. So yes, the IO tile and the Infinity Fabric is 100% bringing down Zen performance right now. And for Intel, that's kind of scary because they're kind of beating Intel with this hamstruck architecture here that honestly has just been tuned and meticulously crafted to support the highest margins and just overall just money printing madness. Like, you gotta hand it to AMD. These parts are made to make the most money. They aren't made for the best performance. You may be thinking that, but I'm telling you guys, these Zen parts could be a lot faster than they actually are, but they don't have to be because AMD's already beating Intel, right? Yeah, I think that 10 to 20% IPC, probably closer to 15%, we'll be seeing with Zen 6. IPC, crazy stuff, but not only that, we're getting 50% more cores on the high end, 12 CCD, core chiplets. So that is 50% more cores. So at a baseline, if those cores scale, that's 50% more multi-core performance. Now here comes the Moore's Law dead Kool-Aid. 5.7 gigahertz is the current max boost clock of the Ryzen 9. Well, he's saying that's gonna go up to 7 gigahertz or a 22% increase in clock speed. Not saying it's not impossible. It happens all the time with node jumps, but for some reason in my mind, 7 gigahertz sounds unattainable. It sounds like madness, but I'm not saying he's not wrong. I do have my doubts. The rumor mill always seems to get a little drunk when it comes to AMD rumors and overestimate, but you know, when honestly all rumors, but especially AMD for some reason. Oh my gosh, the flies. So with that 22% increase in clock speed, 50% more cores and 10 to 20% IPC, I mean, guys, I'm thinking on the low end, this thing is gonna get 60% more multi-core performance. Like I said, on the low end, up to around 85% more multi-core. And guys, Zen 6 is looking more competitive than I thought it did originally. Just running the numbers, especially with the clock speed increases, once I started thinking about, you know, it's no longer gonna be hamstrung by Infinity Fabric, boy, Zen 6 is gonna be good. You know, it's really gonna be good, and I can see why a lot of people wanted to stay on that AM5 platform and secure themselves the ability to eventually upgrade to this amazing, honestly, it's gonna be amazing architecture. So on Cinebench R23, that's around 64,000 to even up to 72, maybe even 75,000 points in Cinebench R23. So very respectable performance. If I had to guess, you know, it all depends on that clock speed increase. If we don't get that huge clock speed increase, it's probably gonna be closer to 65, you know, maybe up to 70,000 points in R23, but honestly, crazy multi-core from Ryzen. I think that's gonna be enough for pretty much anybody. And I can see people now, the debate going on where people are like, I want the best gaming performance, and you know, that multi-core, that's enough for me. And in that case, well, you may just want to go Ryzen, and Intel may be in trouble. Now, we haven't got into the gaming performance, and there is a curveball in my estimations when it comes to this gaming performance. And well, some of you may be disappointed when it comes to X3D. Let's talk about it. In gaming, I think on average, this is going to have 15% more performance than Zen 5. However, I think that's the low end. I think of these clock speeds, you know, we really get 7 gigahertz clock speeds, IPC scales, and actually we get claw back some IPC from last generation, you know, getting the new Infinity Fabric, or doing away with Infinity Fabric, and actually realizing those previous IPC gains that have been, well, basically locked up. I think we could get up to 35%. Yeah, I didn't stutter. 35% more gaming performance. You know, let's say the 9700X to the 10700X or 11700X, whatever. Yeah, like 30% more, maybe 35% more gaming performance, essentially putting the base, whatever you want to call it, Ryzen CPUs actually ahead of the flagship X3D CPUs right now. Don't think that's too far-fetched, guys. If this 7 gigahertz is true, like I said, that 35% is with the IPC gains and the clock speed gains all stacking, and well, I'm still thinking 7 gigahertz is a little far-fetched. In reality, we'll probably see closer to like 20%. I think that's a little bit more realistic there. And well, that 20% is still going to put these base Zen 6 parts higher than the X3D Zen 5 parts, but probably just by a little bit. Now, the next thing I want to talk about, and I think this is going to be the most interesting part of the Zen discussion for a lot of you guys, is what about X3D? How much better is Zen 6 X3D going to perform than Zen 5 X3D? Well, guys, you remember what I said about the IO die being updated and, well, the Infinity Fabric being done away with? Yeah, well, all of that is actually going to diminish the gap between the regular Zen 6 CPUs and the X3D ones. Well, you see here, the X3D is actually benefited by all the hamstrings of the Zen architecture. Now, I keep on saying hamstrings like, Zen is bottlenecked and all that, and guys, it is. The crazy thing is, it's just beating Intel now with all these bottlenecks. And what X3D does is allows those cores to be properly fed enough memory, enough bandwidth, without actually having to cross the Infinity Fabric and go all the way to the IO die, then go to the slow memory that's on Zen. That's why X3D is so potent on the Zen platform. Well, if you fix the Infinity Fabric, make bridge connects, and also give us faster memory, that X3D is not going to be as potent as it was before. And I said this months ago, but I think we're going to only see maybe 5%, maybe 10 at the max, probably closer to 5% more gains with the X3D CPUs of Zen 6. And I know that's crazy to hear, guys, but I do think it's true. I think the reason to buy an X3D CPU, it won't be as great as it has been in the past. Just for example, guys, look at Zen 3. The 5800 X3D was a 20% gain over the 5800X, and that was because the Infinity Fabric and also the IO die was super slow with Zen 3. Well, Zen 4, we updated that, and then we got what, another 15%, and then now with Zen 5, it's only 10%. So it's diminishing as we increase all of these things and lower the bottlenecks across the architectures, and well, Zen 6 is taking that to 11. So I think, X3D is not going to be the silver bullet as it always has been in the past, and that may change, but guys, I'm thinking X3D is not going to be as much of a game changer when we get this new architecture. Just my thoughts, guys. Now, when it still comes to like esports games and like fitting like literally all the assets in cache, like like CS2, Rainbow Six Siege, you may still see like 20% with the X3D CPUs, but when it comes to like bigger AAA games, I don't think there's gonna be much of a gain there. So yeah, guys, that's Zen 6. 60 to 80% more multi-core, 15 to like 35% more gaming, if this clock frequency thing is really gonna happen. Now, is that gonna beat Nova Lake? That's what we're all asking. Nova Lake's kind of a wild card too. Whole new architecture, new socket. I know that's gonna piss a lot of people off. And actually a ton of cores that, how is that all gonna work scheduling wise? Well, I can't answer that for you, but I can speculate on the multi-core and the gaming performance of Nova Lake. And actually I can make a case for Nova Lake right now that I think there's gonna be a reason you're gonna wanna buy it if you're a particular kind of person. So right off the bat, Nova Lake's gonna have double the amount of cores as the 285K or Arrow Lake. There's actually gonna be an extra 4 low power E-cores that basically won't really do anything for us on desktop. They are gonna make idle power consumption lower, but yeah, double the cores. I mean, if that scales, and it should scale with proper power delivery and also cooling, but for most people it probably won't. That would be 100% more multi-core performance there, but like I said, I don't think those cores are gonna be properly fed with enough power, so probably won't scale. And I'm gonna say right off the bat, well, there's also gonna be probably around 10% more IPC, both on the P and E cores with Nova Lake. That's kind of what the general consensus right now is in the leak documents and leak territory. And I think that power consumption wise, I think 250 watts on the low end, which probably is gonna be like if you undervolt this thing, and then up to 350 watts. And then for XQC people, 400, maybe even 500 watts with this 52 core monster. Definitely not going to be attainable for us average Joes, but with exotic cooling and liquid nitrogen, yeah, 500 watts, let's get a new record, right? If you're using 350 watts with this part, you're probably going to be getting around 70% more multi-core performance, probably right around 75K, 70K in Cinebench R23. And then Like I said, if you have really good cooling, if you have a good bin chip, and if you have enough power delivery, you know, Intel lets us push these things, you will see twice the multi-core performance, AKA 80,000, maybe even like 85,000 in Cinebench R23. I think that'll be enough to render your videos. Let me just say that, and download some games at max speed. Now, another thing that we're gonna get updated with Nova Lake is the media engine and GPU tile. And guys, I can't overstate how important this is for video creators. Right now, I have a 265K, it's a 20-core Arrow Lake CPU, and it has an iGPU, an ARC iGPU. And well, this thing, the media encoders on it are just great. It helps a lot when I'm working on video work, makes things very smooth, and makes my exports faster. And this is actually why Intel CPUs right now, even right now, are better for people doing video work. It's because their iGPUs, their media engines, are just far and above better than AMD's. Now, AMD is better at gaming, sure, yes, but with Nova Lake having an XE3, yeah, a Celestial GPU die, I think that's gonna make a case for people with all this multi-core performance that want to make a PC just for video editing or whatever, kind of like an HED platform, but on the cheap. Nova Lake will be using a new socket. I think it's like LGA 1954, and right now we're on LGA 1851. I know that's gonna turn a lot of people off, and I get it, but if you're one of those people that upgrade, you know, every 10 years, Nova Lake seems like a really good option for if you want a lot of PCIe lanes. I think we're gonna get a PCIe lane boost. It may even have PCIe Gen 6, which would be absolutely insane, and you know, a lot of multi-core core performance. You know, Nova Lake doesn't seem like that bad of a bet. Probably support up to 10,000 megatransfers per second RAM. Yeah, so I mean, all the things surrounding Nova Lake seem great, but the one thing at the middle, the gaming performance, that's the big red question mark that, well, I think everyone's wondering about. When it comes to gaming performance on Nova Lake, it's tough to measure. It's really tough to estimate. I'm thinking, you know, with the 10% IPC gain, we could see 10% more gaming performance than Arrow Lake, which I guess would put it on Zen 6, Zen 5, close to Zen 5 X3D, maybe? Depending on whose benchmarks you actually look at, the Arrow Lake is a complete disaster or actually pretty good at gaming. Well, and in my own test, it's actually really good once you tune it. I overclocked my 265K and I bought QDIM RAM that actually cost just the same amount, $300, as my 265K alone. And I found that it was 40%, yeah, I didn't stutter, 40% on average faster than my 13700K that was paired with DDR4, don't get me wrong, but it was tuned. You know, I had the ring tuned and the clock speeds tuned on that 13700K, and well, this 265K was 40% faster, which, I mean, that's gotta be close to an X3D CPU, right? So yeah, if you tune Arrow Lake, it can be good. And what I'm thinking here is, if out of the box, Nova Lake has a higher supported RAM speed, higher die-to-die clocks, and higher next generation uncore clock, it could come a lot closer in gaming. And if that's the case, and if they fix the interconnects issues with Foveros or whatever, I mean, I don't know if there's any issues. I think just honestly, out of the box, they underclocked Arrow Lake a lot, like way too much. They could have like added 50% more clock speed on the die-to-die and it runs totally fine. So I don't know why they underclocked it like that. But if out of the box, Nova Lake has high die-to-die clock speeds, high memory controller support, you know, so reviewers don't pair it with super slow RAM, I'm thinking we can get up to 30% more gaming performance than Arrow Lake, which, depending on what you're looking at Arrow Lake, I'm talking about tuned Arrow Lake, not garbage like, you know, 2 gigahertz die-to-die Arrow Lake. So this would put it probably around 10 to 15% slower than X3D CPUs, AMD's newest X3D CPUs. So what I'm saying is Zen 6 base without X3D would probably be 10% faster than Nova Lake in gaming. Yeah. And this is when Nova Lake's like tuned, you know, high die-to-die clock speeds, high fast mega transfers RAM. Nova Lake still loses. But guys, this doesn't matter as much as you think. Like, losing 10% in gaming, I don't think you're gonna notice it, mainly because, well, if you're buying these high-end CPUs, you probably have a high-end GPU. And if you have a high-end GPU, well, you probably are playing at 4K, maybe 1440p. And let me just tell you, you're probably always GPU bottlenecked. When I tested my 265K, the only time I actually saw it being faster than my 13700K is when I played at like 1080p low or 720p low. I have a 4K monitor and I'm always GPU bottlenecked with my 4080. I didn't actually see one instance where my average FPS was faster while playing at 4K than my old FPS. Now, my 1% lows did get slightly better when it came to 4K, and at 720p, yeah, it got way better. But yeah, 4K gaming, like, CPUs don't matter. You could probably rock like a 10th gen with like a 4090 and play at 4K and probably be fine. And I know that sounds like treason, but it's kind of true, guys. Test it yourself. So for those of you upgrading solely for gaming, CPU generation after CPU generation, if you don't play 1080p, I mean, what are you doing? You're kind of, I don't know, you're just kind of a weird person. I keep on upgrading my CPU because number one, I'm a YouTuber, and number two, I do video work, and it actually helps a lot. This Arc iGPU, notice a considerable difference in the smoothness of video editing after upgrading. So yeah, it looks like Nova Lake's gonna lose in gaming, and I think that's okay. I really do, guys. It's not as big a deal as you think, especially if it wins at Multicore and it has that better iGPU engine. Now, the main thing about it is it's gonna be a hard sell. It's gonna be a hard sell buying a whole new motherboard for Nova Lake, but let me tell you, this platform's probably gonna have all kinds of goodies. Probably Thunderbolt 5, maybe PCIe Gen 5, fast mega transfers, RAM support. I mean, yeah, it's gonna be a baller platform. Now, there's one last thing Intel has up their sleeve. BLLC, what is it? BLLC, big last level cache. Well, this thing could just save Intel in the gaming department. Is essentially just Intel adding tons of cache to their CPUs. It sounds like it's only coming to the Ultra 5, which is equivalent to the Ultra 9 now. It has like 24 cores or something like that. So you're gonna have enough multi-core performance. And with the absolute madness of having this amount of cache, I think it's like over the amount of cache AMD has now in their CPUs. We could be seeing a huge increase in gaming performance for these SKUs with Nova Lake. With this big last level cache, Intel could be slightly competitive with AMD when it comes to gaming. I think it's a stretch, guys, I really do. I still don't think, even with this cache, that they're probably gonna be able to beat AMD in gaming, but like I said, doesn't really matter too much. These CPUs we have are pretty darn fast. I don't know if we need anything too much faster if you're playing at a higher resolution. On the low end, I think this could be 15% faster than Arrow Lake if for whatever reason cache just doesn't help this architecture that much like it did, like we saw with Raptor Lake and its P cores. But on the high end, if for whatever reason, you know, this being a chiplet architecture, it helps mitigate the die-to-die interconnects and jumping all around the die, I think we could see up to 40% more performance. And guys, hear me out. That's because we're gaining back some IPC from Arrow Lake. We're also going to be gaining all the IPC from Nova Lake and fully realizing that with this cache. And I think, you know, 40%, we're probably only 5–10% slower than the X3D CPUs. So we're coming right on the cusp of the X3D CPUs with this big last level cache. However, on a new motherboard, it's gonna be a kind of a hard sell for a lot of people. So what do you think? I feel like there's two camps of people right now. There's those that just absolutely hate Intel. They want Intel to die, and they probably will never buy another Intel CPU in their life. And there's those other ones that kind of, you know, just kind of buy whatever is the best. And I think that next generation, Intel's gonna have a case for many consumers. Those that say, hey, you know, we're about 10% slower in gaming. You won't actually notice that when it comes to 99% of gaming scenarios. If you play at over 1080p, and we actually beat AMD when it comes to multi-core. And with our video engines being so good, if you want to do anything like content creation with Adobe work, we got you covered. So that's just my thoughts, guys. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I'm actually going on a vacation, a 1-week cruise next week. So if I haven't uploaded in a while, that's why. I'm going to try to release something during that time. But yeah, you guys, thanks for checking out the video. Let me know what you think. Which one's better, Nova Lake or Zen 6? Which one are you buying? Silicon Steak, signing out.
Every review, every spec, he's on deck. From GPUs to CPUs, he knows it all. No question too big, no detail too small. He's got the knowledge, he's got the skill. When he drops his take, the haters stand still. Fanboys can cry, but they can't deny. Silicon Steak's truth cuts through the lie.